Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. One of the things we've really been dealing with a lot over the last week has been the wildfire smoke from the western wildfires. Well over 2,000 miles away, they have been spreading quite a bit of smoke all the way to the eastern side of the United States. And you can see in this forecast here through the next couple of days where that smoke is expected to go. So just thinking about this, it's kind of running over a ridge that's in the midsection of the country and just still getting pulled clear into the east coast, into the northeast, in fact, out into the North Atlantic. So this is pretty early in the year to see such expansive wildfires, and we're anticipating quite a bit more coming through. Now, last week I was in Charlotte, and while I was there, I grabbed a picture out of my window seat on the airplane of what things kind of look like as I was coming into town. And Charlotte's actually in the distance here, but you can't see it through all of that smoke. So we're going to continue to deal with this week. A lot of that smoke is in the upper levels of the atmosphere, so it's more of an upper level air quality issue. But it does do a couple of things. First of all, it tends to keep the upper levels of the atmosphere a bit warmer. That can have an influence on atmospheric convection or thunderstorm activity. And the second thing it is robbing us of sunlight. So, there's extinction of sunlight as it goes through this. Now, there's not very much in terms of winds to move this out, especially when you look at the lower levels. And today, there is a big high-pressure cell that's sitting right here, almost on the border of Illinois and Iowa. And we're going to see some pretty stagnant winds in this section of the country here in the Mid-Atlantic. The Carolinas getting back to the Appalachian Mountains. While the stronger winds, where the humidity levels may be down there in the 20 to 30%, are going to go right up into the central and northern plains of the United States. And we talk about winds because of the temperatures that are coming in this week. And I want to just show you what I'm expecting through the beginning of the week in terms of wind gusts. So we're accumulating them here. And as we go out through Wednesday into, let's just stop it here, Thursday, right about that time period. Thursday afternoon. When you look at this map, you can see the color coding over here telling you cumulative maximum wind gusts. So throughout much of this week, we are not going to be seeing strong winds in the Mid-Atlantic through the Carolinas, nor throughout the south and southeast, down here through the lower Mississippi River Valley either. So a very stagnant week as this heat builds in. And I want to show you what I'm talking about here, because our all hazards weather map does show excessive heat warnings, excessive heat watches, and heat advisories through the midsection of the United States. We'll be seeing some very warm temperatures over here in North Carolina as well throughout this week. As our overall temperature pattern, let me expand that or reduce that so you can see it again, will get us into the low to mid 90s throughout this week. But as you get back here into the central plains, these temperatures that are, generally 5 to 8 degrees above average. Just remember, this is the hottest time of year, so to be 5 to 8 degrees above normal in the western Corn Belt and the northern plains is substantial. So we will be seeing temperatures there easily eclipsing 100 degrees. The Northwest continues with its record-breaking summer, and we're going to send more heat that direction very, very soon. Now, the reason that's going to happen, in fact, this might be the most important animation I'm going to show you today, is what's going on in the jet stream level winds. Now, just a quick word on this. If you want to get into amateur meteorology and learn to predict not only the weather over the coming days, but out even weeks, it's all about pattern recognition of the jet stream level winds. And it turns out that when we forecast, we tend to do best with picking up on the pattern. Now, what are we talking about? Well, through Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday, you can see the extremely large ridge that's developing right here in the central part of the United States. And that's what's going on with the heat. But the flow is dipping into a trough off the northwest. There's that ridge. And then there's this trough kind of anchored between the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes, or the Hudson Bay and the Northeast. And what ends up happening when the flow goes more north-south rather than west to east is it tends to amplify. These troughs tend to dig, the ridges tend to build, even retrograde. And so we expect this pattern, watch this, from Wednesday going into Thursday and Friday to do just that. Did you notice that? By the end of this week, this trough is now deeper. The ridge extends farther back to the west, and the cutoff low that's in the Gulf of Alaska is deeper as well. Now, what does this mean? This means that our jet stream level winds will be coming toward North Carolina out of the northwest later this week. And then we need to see what this trough means in terms of changing our temperature pattern going into week 2. And I'll give you a quick sneak peek of that. It looks something like this. This is the day 5 through 10 temperature pattern, and you can now see the heat extending into Western Canada, clear to Alaska, but that trough bringing cooler air in and taking us away from our more extreme heat. Now, how far to the south does that cooler air get? We could just return toward normal. But just a point here, this section of the country, which will be dealing with upper 90s and lower 100s, isn't going to have to deal with it too long. By Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday, things are going to cool back off. Now, since we're given this bigger picture overview of things, let's take a look at what we have in terms of precipitation. I love these maps because predicting summer rainfall is extremely challenging. In fact, it's not possible for our models to accurately and consistently, with a high skill level, predict the position and eventual amounts of rainfall that come from thunderstorms. But we can use this ensemble technique to add some skill and accuracy. So what I like to show is the probability, which is shown here on the x-axis. I just highlighted 60 to 100%. The probability of getting at least an inch of rain through the next 10 days. And if you look across the state of North Carolina, we're generally sitting between a 50 and upwards of an 80% chance. But Texas, this is where the high ends up dropping down, and we end up getting what we call ring of fire precipitation. So the flow comes around like that, around that ridge, and that's what tends to produce this, this ring of storms. So this is a good map just to take in to see how things are expected to evolve as we get into the month of August here. We are watching today some tropical development just off the coast. I'd like to talk to you about that next because the National Hurricane Center has given this a 30% chance of developing, although it's not expected to really go anywhere. As I kind of look at the next 5 days, they're just going to say that these storms could progress west today over into Georgia and Florida. And as they do so, in fact, I was just watching them this morning. This isn't much. We're talking about this feature right here. There is a little low inside of that. Can you see the circulation there? And these storms could slide over here, but this isn't expected to develop more or come up toward North Carolina. So our tropical situation over the coming days is of minimal risk. But this is looking at the next few days at the possible development of a tropical cyclone. Again, probabilities given to you here. It's that time of year where we had better start watching the west coast of Africa. Now, I've been bringing this up in the last few videos, but I just want to reiterate that the MJO is coming out of the maritime continent. Where that is, again, is over Australia, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, and it's moving into the Western Pacific and is going to reset over by Africa. Now, this is where we have to watch because you see this. Let me show you that. You see this kind of green, I think it's green-blue shading that shows up from July 29th to about August 9th. That sits, as you can see from the overlaid maps, right over Africa. And as it moves into this area, what that does is that increases, I'll just show you this graphic as an example, that increases upper level rising motion and removes the inhibiting cap that can sometimes sit over this area. Long story short, the Atlantic Ocean is plenty warm to support the development of hurricanes. The wind shear values are low. They're not above climatological average. Remember, low wind shear values are conducive to tropical cyclone development. And we're just going to start to see more of those storms coming off of the west coast of Africa. And all I'm telling you right now is I'm going to watch it. I want you to be watching it as well. All right, big picture stuff out of the way. Let's get into a couple of details and we'll extend this forecast. Let's blow this up a bit. We're going to be seeing early this week quite a bit of chance for scattered storms. So let's just go right to 9 a.m. this morning on Monday. And as I play through the day on Monday, you can see it with me. Just widely scattered daily convection. All you can do is monitor it on radar. You can't predict exactly where these are going to go or how much rainfall you're going to get. What I'm telling you is the atmosphere is conducive to that. So through this evening, widespread scattered storms. Now, as we go into the overnight hours, there's a feature coming through the Great Lakes we're going to keep an eye on. And that's because as this goes into the northeast, well, tomorrow afternoon we have another chance at some scattered storms, but there's that storm complex that goes into the northeast. And what we see is that once we get out here to Wednesday, that tends to clear things out a little bit for us by midweek. So first few days of this week, Monday, Tuesday, chances of storms. Beyond that, things are kind of getting cleared out with that next system coming through. Now from there, why don't we take over? Let's get right back to the beginning of this. There we go. Why don't we let the European model take over to see where this is going? So there's our chances of storms on Monday. Let's now see the same chance on Tuesday afternoon and evening. And then as we get past that, here's that system that clears it out, and we go into midweek, warm but relatively dry. Now by Thursday, another low starts cutting in through the Great Lakes in Ontario. And what we're going to see with this system is it's going to attempt to leave a frontal boundary right in through here by the time we get toward the end of the week. It's hard to see, but it's stretched right in through that area. Now what that means is as we go into Friday and then into Saturday, that front will slide through North Carolina, and that's what's going to take some of the heat out, but it might come through with some storms. So I want you to watch the end of this week as well. Then as we finish this up, going into Sunday, let's get out there through Sunday night into Monday, we could see early next week better chances for storms once again. And the big reason for this is as the flow comes over that ridge and curls up into lows here, they just leave their frontal boundaries sliding through parts of the mid-Atlantic, and we get better chances for storms as a result of that. All right. But if I stitch it all together, let's just look at total accumulated precipitation. So there's the scattered storms Monday and Tuesday. Some of them could deliver more than an inch, but it looks like widely scattered chances here of getting a half inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch out of these early week storms. But then things, notice we don't add much by Thursday. We're going to watch the weekend system here. That's by Friday afternoon. It slides through, possibly giving us better chances of storms this weekend. And then as we play this out, the models are just picking up on some scattered storms throughout early next week. That is the mainstay of our precipitation regime, a lot of scattered storms. Now because of that, overall, the models are saying, you know what, North Carolina, this next 7 days is going to show up on the drier side of things. It does not mean it's not going to rain. You just saw that I showed you scattered storms, but no widespread heavy rainfall events that are coming through. So we do see that overall, we're sitting about a half inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch in deficit over the next 7 days in total. Now, from there, let's go take a look at what the pattern's going to look like by the time we get 10 days from now. That'd be next Wednesday, the 4th of August. Take a look at this trough and take a look at that one. Now the flow comes around those troughs, dips just a bit off the west coast, runs up into a ridge through Montana, and is just flat and north. So this is very weak upper level flow. And as a result, this whole idea of just staying in the scattered daily thunderstorm regime, it's exactly what's dialed up here by the models. Okay, so when you look out there at week 2, well, the GFS, which is typically our drier model for these types of weather events, you can see that it's showing, again, for the week 2 time period, another deficit of 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch. But I would rather have you look at the pattern in the GFS, but use the European model solution. You see, strong southwestern monsoon curls around and comes through like this. It's too dry here. And what I want you to look at, though, is that the same pattern is in the European. There's the southwestern monsoon, curls around. But now we start to see much more closer to normal precipitation patterns with those scattered daily convective events when we use the European model as our guidance. Good news is that the Bermuda high that can sometimes sit over North Carolina and then scorch us and leave us out just high and dry. It's out over Bermuda. It is not over North Carolina. We've been talking about that now, it feels like for months. So let's get to that long-range forecast after I discuss quickly what's going on with temperatures. Blow this up for you. Now, keep an eye on 2 or 3 things here, okay? Our temperatures, first of all, the Midwest and upper Midwest and Northern Plains temperatures, but look at the southwestern monsoon cranking over here, keeping things cooler. You ready? Monday's highs getting into Tuesday and Wednesday. So we go back up into the low to mid-90s. But look at the heat that's in the western Corn Belt here. I mean, it's 100, 103. That's a lot of stress. But still, Great Basin, Intermountain West, lots of storms, and as a result, not seeing the extreme heat. There's Thursday's highs, but as you noted, there was a front, there it is, coming through on Friday. So the end of our week is the hottest part, well, at least Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then it cools back off for the weekend, more toward normal temperatures and cooler along the coast. And as I showed you earlier, this is how things shape up for that day 5 through 10 time period. We return back to those normal temperatures while the heat retrogrades to the west. Okay, we've got these next 10 days kind of under our belt here. Let's stretch this out and figure out some stuff going on longer term. I'm going to go to the latest European weeklies, and we're going to look exclusively at the month of August. Now, the CFSV2, another model I like to use, has bounced around a lot lately, and the European's been more consistent, so I'm going to use it. Looking at the forecast, the chances of us having a hotter August have now been in the last 3 runs of the European weeklies. So you do see that we may favor a 2 to 4 degree warm bias as we go into the month of August. Now, what about the precipitation pattern? Well, we're going to answer that first by looking at pressure. It's the same story. Do you see it? The Bermuda High, in fact, it has moved way here into the North Atlantic. And the result is the flow still comes around. Nothing is blocking up and sending extreme heat and dry conditions over North Carolina. And that's why the precipitation pattern throughout the month of August is favoring near normal to wetter than normal conditions. Wild card, hurricanes. You know it as well as I do. We're into that time of year where tropical cyclones are going to be something we're going to forecast every single day to see when they're going to develop and where they're going to go. So that is not included in this because these long-range models cannot predict that. But since we're talking about tropical cyclones, I'm going to take you quickly internationally now that we've seen August for us and show you something that's going on right now over in China. So there's a tropical cyclone that is here. It's a tropical storm strength, and it's going to cut right over the Yangtze River, head toward Beijing in the North China Plain, and then curl around into the Manchurian Plain. Now, this is that area that you saw in the last couple of weeks with all of the flooding videos that were all over the internet and on the news. And we're going to hit it pretty hard with more rainfall. And that particular area over the last 30 days has had a lot of flooding. Now, what this could mean for the crops grown in here, which do include corn and soybeans and other crops, I think we're going to have to wait to see because too much rain in this area as of late has caused a lot of flooding. So I want to keep a close eye on that. And since we're here, I'm also going to show you very quickly what's been going on in Europe. How about that? Now, we've known of the very wet conditions over the last month and the flooding that we've had through Europe. But notice the northern part of Ukraine getting into the Russian wheat belt. There are some very dry sectors. Now, thinking about that, let's now go look. We'll just go here and look at the European area as well. Very late next week, there is going to be a frontal boundary that cuts right here into northern Ukraine. And I'll just tell you this, that's an area that's been very dry. And the likelihood of those rains persisting in that area throughout this week and all the forecasts we're going to get is minimal. If you kind of tune into my daily weather forecast I produce via email, you'll see the updates on these maps, and I'll link you to that in just here in a moment. So I appreciate your attention today. Hope you found this informative and useful, and I'll talk to you again next Monday. Thank you.